All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to, hard to believe, May's Caucus. As one of my favorite sayings, right? It's going to be May. I can sing that. No, okay. Or May 4th be with, okay. But certainly just a couple announcements. There's a ton of different activities going on, so please pay real close attention as the principals send out all of their notices and all of their lineups of events. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. They will answer as things get moved on a regular basis as well, just due to some inclement weather. So tomorrow is our Tri-Valley Track and Field Championship meet held here. So please come out and support our Blackhawks as we look to continue the on-track and on-field excellence that's occurring. Thursday night is spring concert. We have high school band. We have high school choir, middle school as well, I believe. Not middle school, sorry. West Side Singers, sorry. That will occur at 7 o'clock. That concert is free, so please come out, support our performing arts students for their spring concert. It's always an excellent performance. So now I'd like to introduce Mrs. Falzerano, who will introduce our high school students and their really creative PennDOT Innovation Challenge that they participated in, and let them demonstrate all of their hard work and excellence. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kyla Falzerano. I teach math and physics here at the high school. I'd like to thank Dr. Fox, the administration, and the board of directors for the opportunity to present the work of the two teams who participated in the 2025 PennDOT Innovations Challenge. Joining me tonight are our two student teams from the physics class. On one team, we have Tierney Stempfli, Alize Reyes, Parker Walter Mizak, and Connor Schenk. On the other team, we have Alana Nickel and Blaze Swanser. Before the teams jump into their presentations, I'd like to share a bit of background on the Innovation Challenge. This competition is open to student teams in grades 9 through 12 across Pennsylvania. It challenges them to apply problem solving, creative thinking, and strategic planning to tackle real-world transportation issues. Each PennDOT engineering district selects a regional winner, and those winning teams advance to the statewide competition, where one overall winner is ultimately chosen. This year's challenge was to develop a cost-effective, innovative solution that can help PennDOT more effectively increase awareness for seatbelt safety and change driver behavior to improve roadway safety. To enter the challenge, students were required to submit a 750-word proposal explaining the problem, their solution, the strategy behind it, the rationale, a timeline, and essential costs. Submissions were due in January, so to support students through this task, we broke the work down into phases: idea generation, research, drafting, revising, and finalizing, helping them to stay focused and meet the deadline. Both of our physics teams submitted impressive proposals, and about a month later, I was thrilled to learn that they had each been invited to compete in the regional round, where they would go up against 8 other teams from Engineering District 8, which includes the counties shown on screen. For this round, students were tasked with creating a presentation no longer than 15 minutes and 15 slides, outlining their innovative solution, which they'll be sharing with you this evening. The regional round was held in March, where both groups traveled to the PennDOT Materials Testing Lab to present their seatbelt safety challenge solutions. They demonstrated strong communication, clear scientific reasoning, and confidence, gaining not only technical skills, but also real-world readiness. After presenting, the teams had the unique opportunity to explore one of the materials labs where they gained hands-on experience with real-world materials and tools. This photo captures both of our teams together after their impressive performance at regionals. Each group brought creativity, scientific insight, and professionalism to their presentations, representing our school with excellence. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate them once again on all they achieved. A few days later, we were thrilled to learn that Alana and Blaze had won the regional competition and would advance to the state competition to compete against winners from the 10 other engineering districts across Pennsylvania. Congratulations once again to Alana and Blaze on the outstanding achievement of being named 2025 PennDOT Innovations Challenge District 8 champions. Their hard work and innovation truly paid off, and the celebration didn't stop there. As they departed to states just a few short weeks later, the entire student body came together to send them off with cheers and excitement. Alana and Blaze were truly touched by the overwhelming support they received from the entire school. The energy from the send-off was incredibly motivating, and it's clear that they channeled that positive energy into their performance at states. For the state competition that was held this past Wednesday, Blaze, Alana, and I traveled to the Commonwealth Keystone Building in Harrisburg, where we had the opportunity to join the Secretary of Transportation, Mike Carroll, for lunch. Afterward, we waited patiently while the other teams presented, and I will say those two have nerves of steel, before it was time for Alana and Blaze to showcase their presentation to Secretary Carroll and a panel of judges. I was so impressed with Blaze and Alana's poise, stature, and confidence as they presented to the panel and responded to questions with clarity and grace. They did a fantastic job of representing themselves, Susquenita, and PennDOT Engineering District 8, and were met with congratulatory remarks from Mike Carroll and State Representative Perry Stambaugh. We're still awaiting the results from the state competition, and we'll be sure to share the outcome as soon as it's announced. Before I hand it over to the students to showcase their innovative solutions with you, I just want to thank the board for welcoming myself and the students to share their presentations this evening. Thank Dr. Fox for his support and for initially sharing the competition with me back in the fall. Thank Krista Snyder and Christine Matash for attending the practice rounds of the presentation and for their support and feedback of the students. And thank Mr. Funk and Mr. Page for attending the practice rounds and for their support of the students and for organizing the high school send-off. Thank you all for your support throughout this entire journey. If there aren't any questions, I would now like to invite Tierney, Alize, Parker, and Connor to share their presentation with you. LGI.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tierney.
I'm Parker.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Alize.
And we're here today to talk about our seatbelt safety innovation strategy that we presented to PennDOT about a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, let's get started.
So, our current issue in today's world with cars is the avoidance of seatbelt usage. So, what can we do to prevent people from not wearing their seatbelts? So, we have two goals. One is a short-term goal and one is a long-term goal. Our short-term goal is the increase of fines, and I'll leave it to Tierney to talk about that more.
Okay, so did you guys know that in Pennsylvania, it's not a primary offense to not wear your seatbelt? So that means it's a secondary offense, meaning you can't get pulled over only for not having your seatbelt on. So we would like to make it a primary offense, and also, according to Title 75, the current fee for no seatbelt is just $10 and then court fees. We'd like to up that to $25 plus court fees. That way it's like a little bit more, no one wants to pay more than $25. And so here's an example of front seat and back seat passengers. Only the passenger in the front seat is buckled correctly. So above, adding to the $25 plus court fees, we'd like to multiply that by 1.5 for every single passenger without their seatbelt correctly buckled. So in this situation, the driver would receive a $56.25 fine.
And these are demonstrations of the seatbelts correctly being buckled. It is across the chest and lap. It is tight up against the body and fully clipped in. Did you know that 79% of people who do not wear their seatbelts end up passing away in a car crash? 6.1% of those people are 19 to 21-year-olds, and 6.7% of those people are 22 to 29-year-olds. So this really shows that the younger generations are starting not to use their seatbelts more often. And now moving on to our other goal, our long-term goal. So this is our AI takeover and technology use. How many of you are fans of AI or are familiar with it? Yep. And if you're not a fan, well, you're about to be.
So part of our AI implementation into our cars is some sort of sensor for the seat belts. So there's always people who clip it behind themselves just so the sound goes away, and then people in the back don't wear it because there's not really a sound that goes on. So if we implement some sort of sensor, then it's going to detect if something's behind the seat belt, and if someone's on the seat, it's going to detect that they need to wear it, so not just the sound goes off and there's more that is affected by it. So we have a demonstration here showing Connor not wearing his seatbelt properly. So anytime you're up front and you don't want to wear it, people just put it behind themselves, like I previously said, and that gets rid of the beeping. This demonstration is him doing it properly. There would be no harm, no foul. There's still risk of car crashes, but you're at least safer. Yeah. And so with your rubber bands here, it just like is a demonstration of seat belts. And if you see, the more you pull on it, it's like if you have your body within it, there's more tension on it, so it holds it better. So like the more things you put in a seatbelt, the better it stays together. And same with the rubber bands. Now off to Connor.
Okay, I'll be talking about another way we could use AI. So we use AI for a lot of things like hospital machines, computer software, and of course in vehicles already. So it'll be easy for us to implement our AI into the vehicles because it's already in there.
No seatbelt detected.
Oh.
No.
Okay, so for our updated cars, we will have, of course, like Parker said, a sensor for the tension, but we will use the sensor so the car will not start unless the seatbelt is detected with the sensor. And also there will be an annoying AI voice that plays similar to the beeping that we have now, but you won't be able to turn it off.
No seatbelt detected. 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 No seatbelt detected.
So like he said, you can't turn it off. It will like override your radio, your directions. So honestly, not a good thing to have. You can't turn it down either. Even if you turn the dial, nothing will change. So.
And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for your time. So our overall goal is to increase fines and use technology in order to improve the seatbelt usage in Pennsylvania. Do any of you have any questions? No? Okay.
Before we pass it off to Blaze and Alana, just remember, if cost is ever a worry with this, what's the value you place on someone's life?
Hello. All right, it works. Just making sure. So I'm Blaze.
And I'm Alana, and this is our innovation to increase awareness for seatbelt safety.
So evidently not everyone wears their seatbelt or wouldn't be here with you today. So what do you guys think are some barriers to seatbelt usage? Any thoughts? Forgetfulness, okay. Uncomfortable. Okay. Very good.
Right, so those are all great answers, but now we're going to discuss some of the most common barriers that we found and why most people don't like to wear their seatbelt.
So we have laziness. Some people simply refuse to wear their seatbelt or they forget to.
Role models, so if you're in a car with people who aren't wearing their seatbelt, you're most likely not going to be encouraged to put on your seatbelt either. So a big issue with this is like children, if their parents don't buckle up, they're not setting a very positive role model for them.
Easy to get away with. It can be difficult for police officers to spot people not wearing their seatbelt.
If you're going for a short drive, some people think it's unnecessary to buckle up, even though you can still get into a car crash either way.
And it's uncomfortable, like these two said.
So all of these barriers would likely decrease if people simply knew the inevitable physics behind a car crash and how significant this use of a seatbelt truly is. So we put together this video to demonstrate that.
With the use of tools in our physics classroom, we set up a simulation of a head-on automobile collision to examine the impact of force on the car and the people inside. Red and blue car collide with force sensors upon each other and weights to represent the people in a car. Inertia is described as an object's tendency to remain at rest if at rest, and remain in motion if in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. Because of this, when the cars collide, the weights on top of the car, which would be people, stay in motion moving forward until hitting the back of the sensor. Looking at the graph, you can clearly see a drastic increase in force when the cars collide, which is passed on to the people within the car. Take a look at this video, for example. It shows a real car crashing into a wall with dummies to represent people. The dummies in this video are not wearing seatbelts and consequently fly through the windshield, which is likely a fatal accident. Similar to the simulation presented earlier, inertia carries the dummies forward in motion after the car suddenly stops. Now examine a similar car crash where the dummy is wearing a seatbelt. The seatbelt interrupts the inertia and holds the dummy back, preventing it from colliding with other parts of the car, such as the seat or windshield. With our understanding of physics, the use of a seatbelt is necessary to enhance your safety in the event of a car accident.
The main purpose of our video was to educate and inform others of the importance of seatbelts. This is just breaking the surface of the largest barrier to seatbelt usage. a lack of proper education.
And this is our solution to that. What? An educational public presentation. These can be conducted by volunteers, possibly high school students, maybe even PennDOT employees. They present those videos to educate the public and also hand out informative materials where, in schools or public gatherings, when it would most likely be held annually, so once a year for every group. And then who? We're specifically targeting younger generations because they're more easily influenced than older people, and we want to start good habits and start a generation of people who are going to buckle up whenever they get into a car. And then why? To increase seatbelt safety awareness.
Now we're going to look at other educational campaigns that have a similar process to the one outlined in our solution. So here we have Mr. Yuck. Who knows Mr. Yuck? Familiar with Mr. Yuck? Very nice. So for those of you that don't know who Mr. Yuck is, he is a highly influential avatar used to deter people from harmful substances. He is included in presentations to younger children and on stickers that children take home and place on products with harmful chemicals.
Also, Smokey the Bear. He's another informative mascot to inform the public about dangers associated with forest fires.
And then the recycling symbol, which serves as a reminder to the public that recycling is a great supporting choice when disposing of trash.
And so what do all of these have in common? These are all educational reminders for the public, and they are still successful to this day. Similar to all of these innovations, we have developed one for seatbelt safety.
Introducing Seatbelt Sam. This car would serve a similar purpose in educating the public, and more specifically children, about the importance of wearing seatbelts. We would use this avatar to create a sticker like Mr. Yuck so children are able to put them in the car. Every time the children get in the car, the sticker will remind them to practice seatbelt safety. It also may influence older generations, like a parent, to put on their seatbelt. Overall, it will serve as a universal reminder of the importance of always wearing your seatbelt. Now Alana will come around to hand out our prototype of our sticker. Yeah.
Okay, so as you can see on the sticker there, we also developed an acronym to go along with Seatbelt Sam. This would be to help children remember why he is so important. So we have seatbelts always matter for Sam. This would also be included in the presentations mentioned earlier and on any materials that are handed out. And also we have a video that we put together here of 2 students from our elementary school, and they demonstrate the effect that Seatbelt Sam is capable of having.
Hi Lisa. Hi Junior. I was just at a very amazing presentation. About what? Seatbelts. Do you wear your seatbelt? Only sometimes. Well, Sam says seatbelts always matter. Wow. That's cool. I'll remember to buckle up next time. You can put it in your car to remind you to buckle up. Seatbelts always matter.
Very cute, right? Those are our littles from Big Brother and Sister, whoever is familiar with that. So, yeah. This video clearly displays the direct impact our solution is capable of having. Not only will our solution highly influence younger children, but also in a very practical and cost-effective manner. The only cost needed to be covered would be the handout materials at the public presentations and possible payment to workers conducting the presentations. Materials would include stickers like the ones handed out, bumper stickers, possibly a window cling that would be easy to apply in the backseat windows where children ride, and coloring/activity books. The purpose of all these materials is to remind children why it is important to wear a seatbelt when riding in a vehicle. Our innovation is simple, low cost, requires minimal use of technology, but will still have a large impact on the community for years to come.
In summary, our innovation seeks to provide the public with the proper knowledge surrounding seatbelt safety. We hope to influence younger generations to buckle up and save lives with Seatbelt Sam. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you all for watching our presentation.
Thank you very much. Outstanding. And I think that one of the things that certainly I think resonates with a lot of, or all of us, is the fact that it looks like you had a lot of fun making some of these videos and exploring. But it's really neat to see also how you went through the design thinking process to come up with your innovations. And great job. And appreciate you coming this evening and spending and sharing all of your processes and your innovations with us. So thank you for leading, and thank you for demonstrating so many attributes of our Portrait of a Graduate. Once again, let's give our students a round of applause. We are going to take a moment and transition into some elements of our agenda coming up here for our May meeting. Lots of really important items that are coming up as we look at the upcoming next Tuesday, the May 13th board meeting. So going over resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment to date thus far, we have two resignations. We have Joanne Leitner from the position of custodian and Mr. Jeremy Moser from the position of long-term substitute math here at the high school. We have a retirement that I'd like to note. We have Mrs. Cindy Dersham from the position of Secretary for Buildings and Grounds. And Cindy has done an incredible job. She's been with the district for close to 19 years coming up, and she's phenomenal. She does a little bit of everything for the district, always has a smile, and we certainly will miss her. And I know I speak for Mr. Howell, who's under the weather this evening, or he would be here speaking on her behalf right now, and we'll get him to make a speech later on. So congratulations to Cindy. We have some employment coming up. We have Nathaniel Hammaker for the position of custodian, and excited to welcome for next school year at the elementary school for elementary teacher, Mrs. Lauren Demmel from Hummelstown. She's a recent upcoming graduate of Millersville University. We have a voluntary transfer, Ms. Elena Andianasio. She's transitioning from our paraprofessional position to help us as a long-term substitute at the elementary school for the remainder of this school year, and a leave of absence for Ms. Sarah Pedrick. We have some substitute custodians, as well as looking for successful completion of 2 individuals for their 90-day evaluation. So congratulations to them. And athletic coaches and volunteers for the fall of 2025. So we have several of them to note as well and to approve, so they can go ahead and get started with a lot of the work that's necessary in preparation for the fall. That kind of rounds out at this point our resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment. Any questions at this time on those items? Hearing none, I will move into agenda items for our board review of the tentative agenda to date. looking to have some of our student presentations, lots of activities going on. So Maddie and Olivia will do an outstanding job of keeping us up to date on all of the current happenings that are going on and the many activities. We're looking at approving our proposed general fund budget that we'll go over here shortly. The proposed general fund budget, again, is our preliminary budget that allows it to sit for public review for 30 days, and at which point then it will become finalized and adopted at the June meeting. And we'll go over and discuss several of those options and what those options look like here as we move forward with our discussions this evening. We have election of board treasurer. It's that time as we look for that position. And looking to motion to approve First National Bank as our district depository. And looking to approve meal prices for the 25-26 school year. And to note, all meal prices will remain the same for the 25-26 school year, except for the cost of milk, which will go from 65 cents to 80 cents. We're looking to approve fund custodians for our student fiduciary accounts, and those will be our principals as noted. Moving along with agenda items, we are looking to, and we'll discuss that this evening, approve the student code of conduct with little changes for the 25-26 school year, and a motion to approve the co-curricular and extracurricular code of conduct for the 25-26 school year. A copy of that is at your seats here for this evening, and there are no proposed changes to that at this time from the 24-25 school year. We're looking to have a motion to approve and replace 2 dish machines from Singer and Company that are CoStar's contract, not to exceed $136,990.34. That will be paid via the cafeteria fund. Part of our plan last year is to continue to work down some of that cafeteria fund, as was noted from the Pennsylvania Department of Education's Food and Nutrition Division. We are looking to have a motion to approve a donation from the softball boosters for the installation of the softball fence, and we thank the boosters for their donation, and that fence looks good in the outfield, or along the first base line. Is that correct? Thank you. Motion to approve an official board resolution on Teacher Appreciation Week. And if I may, I would like to, at this time, would you like to read it, or would you like me to? I would go ahead and read this into, and it'll be official as we have approved this at our board meeting on Tuesday. So just so we know, it is Teacher Appreciation Week. We cannot thank the teachers enough for what they do. And one of the official actions that you as a board has is an official action called a resolution. So technically what you're doing is recognizing and placing into local law an action which recognizes Teacher Appreciation Week. So let me go ahead and read this resolution. So Susquenita School District Board of Directors official resolution. Whereas the teachers make public schools great, and whereas the teachers work to open students' minds to ideas, knowledge, dreams, and whereas teachers keep American democracy alive by laying the foundation for good citizenship, and whereas teachers fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, and whereas teachers continue to influence us long after our school days are only memories. Now thereof, we, the members of the Board of School Directors for the Susquenita School District, hereby declare our appreciation to our teaching staff and acknowledge May 5th through the 9th, 2025, to be Teacher Appreciation Week. Be it further resolved that we urge administrators, teachers, parents, and students, and others from our community to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of these individuals by resolution of the Board of Directors on this 6th day of May 2025. Congratulations to our teachers, and thank you for all you do. And that will be official as board action on Tuesday. We have some contracts for approval. The Capital Area Intermediate Unit to provide services for students from July 2025 through June 30th, 2026. We have an agreement looking to have a motion to approve an agreement with CCRES. It's an educational and behavioral health services, a staffing company to provide educational services and instructional support services and other similar services for July 1, 2025 through July 2026. And CCRES is a not-for-profit organization out of Doylestown, Pennsylvania. We are looking to approve a contract with Incident IQ, as discussed previously, to provide cloud services. There's an onboarding fee and an annual fee, and that's to be memorialized in this year's general fund budget as well. And it provides our ticketing and asset management for devices and our custodial and maintenance support. We're looking for a motion to approve as we get into a lot of contracts currently. Marikey of Pennsylvania to provide services to students, primarily with autism, as necessary and appropriate at a daily tuitional rate for the 25-26 school year. And we have a motion, and I appreciate all of the hard work that Mr. Funk has done with an MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, with Seton Hill University out of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, to provide college and the high school dual credit at a rate of $234 for each 3 to 4 credit course and $80 for 1 credit course for the 25 through 28 school year. And that's an ongoing partnership as the courses and the syllabi are continuing to be reviewed. So thank you for your work on that and continuing to provide those opportunities, if it's the right opportunity for students to take part in those continuing college and the high school. That is not replacing our current college and the high school programs. That's really to develop and to provide additional opportunities for students if they so desire and choose to do so. We'll have updates from Cumberland Perry Area Career and Technical Center, lots of happenings with our Black Hawk Foundation, and that sums up our agenda. As I said, it's a lengthy agenda.
Because you give us the link to the agenda, I noticed that there's quite a large, it appears to be a large increase with the IU. I don't know if you have an answer to this now or if it's not even appropriate to ask it now, but do you know why, what's driving that big increase?
There was an increase in a lot of their fees, a lot of the placements, our alternative education placements, artistic support that we have. There was quite a large increase.
Is that covered? How does that affect our general fund budget from last year with that? Or is that going into the budget? Well, that'll be for the budget for next year. Do we have that reflected in our general fund budget or our budget for next year? Okay.
We need to use microphones because we're live streaming.
Okay, got it. When I did the budget for capital, I increased it by the percentage that I was provided to them during our original contract negotiations. However, when the contract came in, it came in substantially higher than what their estimate was. So that's one of the reasons that we've been so proactive in opening up our own autistic support classrooms, and also looking at not only is it our intention, obviously, to place students when we do need to outplace them, but place them in the best opportunity that they're going to have to succeed. But we've also looked at alternate locations where, it is going to, not only are we going to be able to service their needs and do it in the best, most effective way, but it's also going to be more cost effective for the district.
If I may, I thought we budgeted separately for placements like Hilltop Academy, and then we also pay capital area intermediate unit like a certain amount for whatever they do. So
It is, but it is still part of that one budget. So if you look at the actual budget number that they give us, they break it down into emotional support, autistic support, and then it's also broken down by, as far as the part that I cover, it's also broken down by like related services, any type of like PT, like we have to contract PT, physical therapy with them because we don't have obviously enough of a need to support our own. So we do contract through them. So it is broken down, but it is part of that overall dollar amount that's within the IU.
So I guess my question is, if the increase is $158,000, how much, Mr. Browse, is that, were we under the number, and are we going to have that reflected in that budget for us to vote on?
I think when we talked, correct me if I'm wrong, I think when we talked that we said there might be a shortfall of about $100,000, so we have
Correct.
like 50 or 60 in. But I think there's other things that, we can do to try to, mitigate some of that.
Okay.
Because we are also, remember, one of the things that we've done too is we've also taken back some of those services, like the speech and language pathologists from them and things of that nature, so that we are able to then do the access billing. So we'll be able to get some of that funding back, which can offset. Obviously, we can't use that to pay them, but we can use that in other areas that will provide us more cash flow.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I just had one. If the price of a lunch is not going up, but a price of a milk is going up 15 cents a carton, so you get a lunch with the milk, but if you want to buy an extra milk, it's going to cost you 80 cents, and it's only 65 cents if you buy it as part of a lunch. Is that right?
No, milk individually is going up. So if you just buy a carton of milk, it's 80 cents. But if you buy the entire lunch, it includes a milk, and it's
The same price, okay.
it is not changing. Correct. It will be at the middle school, $2.55, at the high school, $2.55, and at the elementary school, $2.30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll transition into curriculum instruction and assessment updates.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Fox. I just wanted to bring up, we know that this is a crazy time of year for everyone here at the district, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that the fact that we have been involved in PSSA testing the last several weeks, and I just have to say that our elementary school and our middle school teams, our administrators, our students have done a phenomenal job at pulling this off and making it a successful testing window for the district. And I will mention that we go into Keystone testing starting on Monday. So again, it just encompasses many weeks of our spring, but everyone has just done a tremendous job. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that. Also, we are working, I want to say feverishly, because there's a lot of employees to talk to and to make sure that everyone is getting what they need for their summer sessions coming up. So I think it was last month I presented and showed you the trade day catalog. So we've kind of closed that window and everyone signed up for the things that they are interested in, and now we're just kind of processing all of that and getting those sessions ready. So really it will be here before we know it, and that actually starts right after our last day of school that Monday in June. So we will be working all summer through those sessions. Also, very, very excited to announce, and you are hearing it here first, that we applied for a PA Smart Innovation Planning Grant. So Mrs. Matosh and I wrote this grant. I can't even remember. I think it's about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. So you always have to wait a long time till you get, your feedback on those. But we actually were awarded, one of the few districts in the state, $75,000 that we are going to begin this project that actually runs through, I think it's June 30th of 26. So we have a little over a year's time to plan and get this implemented. But this will help us launch what we are going to be calling the Black Hawk Discovery Nest, which is very hands-on STEM space for our elementary students, but it is also going to bring in that component of a new high school course where we're actually going to be able to get students who are interested. They can earn college credits while working with the elementary and then providing that real world experience in childhood education. So we're really, really excited. We have a lot of planning to do and just a lot to kind of wrap our brains around. We just were awarded towards the end of last week. So we'll keep everyone posted as we move forward, but we're really, really excited about the space and getting that started. So, and I know Mrs. Matosh has a lot of announcing to do over the next couple of days that we will get out to the public, but we're really excited. So we will keep you posted. Yeah, really excited. And that's all I have.
All right, so if I may, I think looking at the agenda, I'm going to bat out of order here a little bit, if that's all right, and start from the bottom and move around a little bit, if that's okay. And Mr. Markowitz, you've been waiting patiently. If it may please the board for a presentation, talking a little bit about revised coaches matrix. So I want to set this up a little bit. Initially, you came in front of the board at a caucus meeting and provided some athletic updates. And one of the updates that certainly we walked away and you were asked or charged to do, or even said you were going to explore a little bit further, is looking at the current coaches matrix. And one of the things we said is, instead of waiting until it's finalized and completed, if you could come up with a rough draft and kind of share what that work looks like to date, see if we collectively have any feedback we want to share and offer, and then have another memorialized benchmark date for a final presentation, it would be better than saying, here it is, and let's implement the next day. So that's, I believe, where we are at currently right now. Appreciate all of the work that went into this work to date. It's certainly a labor of love, and it's certainly something that we want to do and need to do. And now I will be quiet and offer you the opportunity to share your work to date.
All right, so we wanted to jump into this, and again, I want to thank Jason. Really helped me out. We worked together, met several times, and went over some numbers. And looking at our current coaching matrix, it is a bit confusing. Not really understanding where the numbers are coming from, why they were there, what the increases are. So the goals that I had going in was I want this to be organized. I want it to be easy to follow. I think every coach, whether you're a head coach, an assistant coach, or a junior high or high school coach, you deserve an increase every year. That will help us keep our effective coaches. And then we also want to visit postseason pay. This will be for high school only. We qualify for districts and states and all that extra time that our coaches put in after the season. So we want to explore that option as well. So just some matrices that we did get, Mechanicsburg, Halifax, Spring Grove. Now, I started Spring Grove because their numbers were very similar to ours, and I really liked how they had their matrix out. Some of the other ones, it was just a huge spreadsheet with numbers, and you'd have to try and figure out why that number is that one. But Spring Grove really had a nice chart, good explanation. We looked at Ole Valley and Juniata as well. The first thing we have to do is we have to split up our sports into tiers. Now, tier 1 would be football and our main winter sports. Reason why is our winter sports actually run longer than our other seasons do by a few weeks. Again, this is something that we are seeing across the board, breaking the sports up into tiers. So we have football, wrestling, boys and girls basketball as tier 1. Tier 2, field hockey, boys and girls soccer, baseball, softball, track and field. Tier 3, competition cheer in the winter, cross country. And Tier 4 would be our fall cheer program. So just the numbers, and I know it's a lot, but this was our rough draft here. So for Tier 1 sports, the high school head coach salary begins at $5,000. The assistant coach salary begins at $3,250. We got that. That's 65% of the head coach salary. Now, it's a little different with football. Football is a little different. We have our head coach, and then we have 2 varsity assistant coaches. They will be making 70% of the head coaching salary, and then our remaining coaches on the football staff will make the 65%. Junior high would begin at $3,000. That's 60% of the head coach salary, and junior high assistant coach would begin at $2,750. That's 55%. Every year, our head coach salary goes up $150. Every year, our assistant coach salary increases $75. Junior high, high school increases $50, and junior high assistant coach increases $25 per year. Now, I'm not going to, I mean, obviously the bottom is all the same. The increases are going to be the same for every tier. I'm not going to change that. For Tier 2, the starting salary is a little lower. Head coach salary begins at $4,200. AC salary begins at $2,750, and same. The percentages are the same exact for this one as well. Then we can move into Tier 3, where that begins at $2,700, and same thing across the board there with the reason why we have our salaries for our assistant coaches and our junior high coaches as well. So we're sticking with that same percentage. How does it compare? So currently we have $212,000 in our budget. Now, again, we have some coaches we are still finalizing, so moving around. So estimated with this applied to all of our coaches, we've had some coaches here 10 years, 8 years, 9 years. We're about at 220,000. So we're pretty close. Definitely continuing to work the numbers and see if we can get a little bit closer. But this does not include the postseason pay. So in the matrix, and we're going to show that in a second, it goes up to year 10. After year 10, the high school head coach would go up $75 per year every year after year 10. Assistant coach 50, junior high head coach 40, and junior high assistant coach 25. And then the matrix, just what it looks like. We have that.
Can I, just for clarification?
Yeah.
So,
So that's just what the matrix looks like. So if I'm a coach, okay, I can go to wrestling head coach and I can go to year 4 and I know what I'm making. You know, just a little bit more clear and organized to where you're making it. The increases are all there for what we talked about in the presentation. For me, this just seems a lot more clear to why coaches are making certain numbers. So that's just kind of what the matrix looks like on a spreadsheet. Again, been playing with the numbers a lot, wanted to get as close as we could. You know, I think our first try we were way over, and then my second try for somehow reason I was way under. So we're trying to get as close as possible to 12.
the second slide where you had that at year 10,
Yep.
so they're going to get, a head coach would get paid less increase per year
Yeah,
at
there's-
year 10?
Yeah, there's a ceiling. We saw that a lot with other
Okay.
schools as well. If you keep going up, you know, it's like it's getting a little too much. So a lot of schools say after that year 10, we're going to start with just these steady increases per year.
And then I guess my other question was, I know right now we have the option for, or we've approved head coaches waiving the matrix in order to hire more assistant coaches and then dividing that. Will that no longer be, are we looking at not doing that anymore?
I'm
or-
going to recommend to not waive the
okay.
matrix. And I've explained to my coaches a little bit about it, that if we waive it, then those increases won't be there. You're waiving all of that. So we want to keep this matrix the way it is, and I think coaches would like it more with these increases every year.
And then my final question I have is, when you were looking at other districts, maybe talking to other ADs, do they ever hire coaches in that have experience and bring them in at another level, or do always new coaches get hired in at the beginning salary of our head coach?
We've
make sense?
discussed this.
Okay.
This is one of our things that we're going back and forth with. If you would ask me if we have an 8-year coach coming in that's that's been doing it a long time, I think we would probably start him where he would be here with year 9. Now, let's just say we have a great assistant coach that's coming in from another school and they're coming in as our head coach. That's a different position. I think we would start that at year 1 from the head coach salary. And again, these are things that, we still have to finalize some of these details. That's great. That's one of the points we've been kind of going back and forth with.
And then maybe kind of, sorry, I'm asking so many in a row, but so what if you had an assistant coach? Is there any point that the assistant coach salary with, say, 15 years is higher than the beginning head coach salary? So like if you were to promote an assistant coach from here in our district, would there be room to, and maybe that would just be a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, more
Okay.
of a case-by-case basis. That's another great point. Yeah, I mean, we got to play with the numbers a little bit. But like I said, the biggest thing for this draft was just organization a little bit and just being able to look at, okay, like I want a coach to go up to a chart and say, all right, this is what I should be making, and like just more clear.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, we still need to finalize just a few more details there.
Just, I don't know if I'm advocating for this or not, but you said you were perhaps recommending we not look at the waiving the matrix type thing. I think we could still do that and just keeping in mind, if the coaches that are still there the year that we waived the matrix are there, we would just bump them ahead as if they were there when we come up with the total salary for the following year.
You can't do that because then they could move the coaches around in their position assignments to make more money. So you can't add the bumps if you waive the whole matrix.
That's why I'm recommending to them to just keep the matrix, because that's how we do the increases.
With the new,
I like the concept of waiving the matrix the way that it was explained to us, because it gives a coach freedom to take, a head coach freedom to take less money, but have more staff than
They
we had.
They still can.
But maybe we could look at that in another. Anyway.
how does this compare to our current, like, would this impact any of our coaches negatively, like the
It's a great question. So, some coaches, and I'll give a sport, cross country is a sport that the salaries are pretty high, and now with the tiers, it's going to drop a little. But you see more probably increases than anything. Basketball, those are all going to be increases moving to a tier 1. But other than that, they're either very close or, a little bit higher. So for the most part, I think it's a good. Mm-hmm. And then we have like the number of coaches, number of assistants in parentheses as well, so how many we pay. And if there's a couple math issues, there could be. I've been staring at this thing for a couple weeks.
I appreciate the amount of effort and work and thought you've put into this. I mean, it's clear, it's quality, so thank you.
Yeah, no, and another shout out to Jason, definitely a big help. I'm pretty good with numbers, but he's way better than me in numbers than I am, so. And then I think I just had one slide left, pretty sure, maybe 2. Okay, so this is just some future plans. There is some talks right now, Mid-Penn, Tri-Valley, what's better for our programs. For me, we need to look at success. We need to look at postseason in districts and states, and what's going to give us the best chances to get there in an organized league where we get JV. Right now we're having some issues. We're not getting a lot of JV games. Some teams in Tri-Valley right now are kind of backing out of the season. We had that with field hockey. We had that with soccer. We had that with softball. Teams backing out last minute. We have to kind of scramble around to get games. I got my softball coach here today. They're having a heck of a season. Currently, they're in second in districts right now, being undefeated. So these are just some things we're looking at. And again, you see the other side of it too. Tri-Valley, we have been very successful. Our boys teams are getting really close to kind of getting up there with the girls teams, and I think Tri-Valley is helping us there with that. So it is a conversation. It's something we're talking about. Nothing for next year. We're not going to make any moves and do anything for that. We will be in Tri-Valley next year, but this is something that we want to discuss moving forward.
So I think this is a good kind of pause point, if that's okay. I think what Mr. Markowitz needs maybe is just some general direction. If it's okay for him and for us as an administrative team to begin that exploration of what that might look like. What are the pros? What are the cons? And really spending some time to take a deep dive in. And then also the potential of maybe bringing in a representative from the Mid-Penn Conference to talk about what that would look like for us and allow you, certainly, if it pleases you, to ask questions directly to that individual or individuals. Again, this is not a set in stone. This is not a go fast to go slow. It's a go slow to go fast, and to really take a look at what does it look like for us year 1, year 2, year 3. Mr. Markowitz hit on a really important topic. What does it look like for our JV? What does it look like for our junior high? How do we get opportunities for those kids to continue to develop and play against competition that they can continue to not just not have games because of not having that schedule be filled. And that's really important for that continued success and that continued opportunities for kids, because you can only practice so much before you need to be able to go out and compete against somebody different. So I think that's really where that is going right now, if I may, that we are kind of just looking for your kind of verbal straw poll to say, are you okay to continue that next step of exploration? And if you're like absolutely positively no, then we hit the brakes and we're no worse for the wear.
Thank you, Dr. Fox, for that. And then just a few more points here. And this is we want to bring ticket prices back to $5. If you look around, there's very few schools that do anything less than $5. Our facilities are fantastic here. We have a new video board. We have a stadium. I think we need to bring it back to $5. I mean, you see schools that are higher than that, but I think that's a good number. Our students are free with the all-season, with the all-sport pass they get. So a lot of schools charge their students. We do not charge our students. I still want to keep the age, a certain age is free. Family pass option is something I really want to make sure we hit the ground running. I think that's a great option for our families, where we explore the option of just getting a pass for all sports. And then I want to start charging for track and field. No reason we don't. We're in the stadium. I think it's something we could start charging for. And we are one of the few schools in Tri-Valley that don't charge for junior high. We do charge for junior high wrestling, but we have not charged for anything else. So one of the ideas I have is stacking our junior high and our high school basketball games all in the high school next year. We'll charge it. This will increase the crowds for both levels. More people will be there, more support. So these are just some ideas. Soccer for junior high and field hockey for junior high are in the stadium as well, so it would be easy to monitor the tickets. Now, when it comes to baseball and softball, that's very difficult. I was trying to figure out ways where it would work, but it's going to be very hard to do admission for those. You have people kind of sitting all over the place. Softball, they're all in the outfield behind the fence. You see baseball, people are just pulling in, walking from long distances. So, one of those things that could be tough to do. But these are just some ideas that I think can help us too with revenue and our budget. But, that's really all I have for this.
Just going back to the matrix for a second, at what point do you see yourself involving the coaches, or have you already involved the coaches, or can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much involving the coaches. We communicate all the time. Got some here tonight supporting me, which is great. But it's something that, they want a little bit more clarity of why they're getting paid what they get paid. They want a little bit more of a clear and organized matrix. We've had some assistant coaches been here 10 years, and they've never got an increase. I think as a former varsity coach myself, and I'm sure I speak with other coaches here, like, your assistant coaches are very important to the staff, very important to the success of the team. I remember my assistant was like he was organized, so he helped me out with so many things to get my job done. So I think we need to get those increases for our assistants as well. I think it's important. I think all of our coaches work hard, so.
Retaining and maintaining our coaching talent builds programs. And I think that's important as well as we continue when we talk about student opportunities and student growth over time. It's about that continuity and being able to build those programs. When a head coach of a high school event is the head coach of a program, not just the sport.
I just have a couple things. First of all, I'm in favor of them getting the info on the Mid-Penn conference. I think that'd be great, just to be able to kind of revisit that and just evaluate it. What is our current ticket price now? Is it 3?
3.
Did you think about this stepping it up to the 5, like going 3, 4, 5, or do you feel pretty confident?
I mean, from what I've seen, at least from what I've talked, at least Tri-Valley, some local schools, it's 5 to 7. I mean, I don't see many below that.
Okay.
I think maybe Halifax might be 3, but other than that, it's pretty basic with the 5.
And then my only other, I know I suggest this, and I'm sure you probably thought it through, but is there room to charge per car rather than charge? And the reason why I say that is, like, I'm thinking about the days where you have a softball game going on and a track meet, and you're going to charge for people to go into the stadium but not charge the people watching softball. But if you charge per car, then everybody would get charged.
So like when they come in,
Yes,
we have people.
That's what they do at Greenwood for field hockey games. As there are people pulling into the parking lot, they get charged per car, $5 or something like that.
That's not a bad idea. I
Yeah,
mean,
and you could do the same thing at the baseball field. Now, you may have to have people kind of parked at, coming into the middle school, coming into the high school, or you block off one area, but the per car charge might solve the problem for the spring sports.
Yeah, no, I think that's something we could definitely look into for sure.
Thank you
No,
for all
thank
of
you.
this.
No, thank you.
They do that a lot with cross-country as well. Like at places where I've gone to watch cross-country, they charge by the car.
Just $5, doesn't matter how many you're in.
Yeah, like that's what they do for districts, like when you go to districts, because you can't, there's no gate, you know? Mhm.
I mean, those schools have one point of entry that you can't get around basically to pull in and park, like Greenwood, for example.
But what
here,
they do, like at Big Springs, when they're doing cross-country districts
block
there.
them all off, I guess?
They block them off. They have one security person that's there or somebody like that, block it off and you feed them through.
Events starting here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't block off the elementary school, and that's, people are gonna pull in at that entrance and park at the middle school parking lot.
Or you have
at
somebody
the
there
district
taking the
office,
money,
parking.
whether you
But
don't
then-
block them
But
off.
yeah, but you got it, but then your $5 you're getting per car becomes null and void because you're paying one person to be down there taking money, one person to be up here taking money. You know what I mean? I think historically, we didn't collect for junior high events because we didn't get enough revenue for people coming in to offset the fact that we paid somebody to be in the booth taking the tickets, right? So I could be wrong about that, but I believe that had something to do with it.
No, it did. You're exactly right. And I think maybe moving to the high school, since it's stacking on people that are already on staff that are already going to be here for the next event, might make better sense
Right,
of use of
the
resources.
gym scenario with the junior high basketball and high school, that makes perfect sense, right? Because they're already there, but.
I don't know. I think it might be worth looking into. I just know when I came here for a track meet, when there's a softball game going on, there was a whole lot of cars in our parking lot. Like, I think you might get in a lot of money to offset even having those people there. We'll see. I don't know. But I hear your point. I think it's the multiple entrances that we have that make it a little bit more challenging.
So I think at this point, Mr. Markowitz needs some direction as to when you would like him to come back, because this coach's revision matrix, that yes, needs a little tweaking, some more additional conversations with our coaches so they understand and get some feedback from them as to any concerns or feedback, that the more eyes that get on it as a draft. But where would you like the next steps to go for him? Because it does and should require a formal vote of approval when it's ready to go.
And I did leave out one big part. I think I said postseason pay, but I didn't tell you how much we're looking for that. It's pretty important, yeah. So we're looking at $150 per week for the head coach and $75 per week for the assistant coach. On average, I think, Jason, we were going over if every team qualified a couple weeks, it'd be about $6,000 roughly added to the budget, and that's if every team qualifies. So that's what we're looking at. A good similarity, Newport, they give a percentage, about 4%. So if you look at it, it's pretty close to those numbers. So I think, in my opinion, these coaches that go an extra month after their season and they still practice every single day, they probably are working harder than they did in the regular season prepping their teams. They should get compensated for that.
For me to answer your question, Dr. Fox, when we talked about this the last time, I did not expect this to be near ready as it is right now. So whatever you are comfortable with, I appreciate that you and apparently the rest of the coaches have felt the way the board does. This current system does not only made sense to maybe one person. So I appreciate that. So whatever you're comfortable with at whatever pace, I would think for you to get this done would make your life a little easier, make things a little more comfortable for you and the coaches. So I would leave it up to you and the administration to make this deadline whenever you think. I would like to hear what the rest of the board feels.
I would agree. I think the only thing that I would like to see is how we reflect it in the budget if we are going to be doing, like, would you foresee this wanting to be implemented with the next budget cycle for the fall?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would like.
And maybe we don't need to adjust much for the amount difference that it is if we're looking at the possibility of bringing in more revenue from increased ticket prices. It may offset that, or did you have any idea of how much that might offset?
That's kind of why I want to add that. I think it will. I think it will offset us, and I think, just a couple changes, slight changes to our admission and things like that, and charging for some more events, I think that will definitely offset it. It will be close.
And as you were talking, I was remembering how we talked now that we have the new scoreboard, and you seem to also have a personal vision of us hosting more events here. I mean, we have state-of-the-art facilities, with the exception of bathrooms that are way too small, in my opinion. But we have really state-of-the-art facilities here. We could host more events. That will bring in revenue as well.
Yeah, so if we host PIAA events, for most sports, we get a facility fee. Other than that, that money will go strictly to the boosters. Like the ticket money that we make, that goes right back to the state. But anything we sell concession-wise, that all goes to our boosters. Football, when we hosted the state game, I think we made, Joe, how much did we make? Yeah, just under $2,000 for one game. And that's great. So we did a great job. The state really wants us to host. So we're going to be looking to do that as well, and some facility fees. And then one thing we are looking in, and I don't want to go too far ahead, is we have a lot of organizations that use our facilities, outside organizations. So I think taking a look at that, getting a little bit more control of that, and possibly charging for field fees and stuff like that could also help us bring in some more too. So I think we just got to get more organized on that front.
I think my only other question, just because I'm hypersensitive now to the PSERS additional funds, when we were comparing last year's salary to what this new matrix would bring in terms of budget, was that number considering the PSERS increase?
Yeah, we multiplied it at the end.
Fabulous. So. You guys are on it. Thank you. That makes me feel better.
The only other thing I wanted to say is I appreciate your enthusiasm. You speak well. We need to hear from you more often. I like to hear your vision. I like to hear what's going on with the different sports. And if we don't hear from you, sometimes we don't know. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And your enthusiasm is contagious. I'm happy we have an enthusiastic athletic director who has a vision and ideas.
Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Just one other thing. I did notice on the agenda when the agenda review that we have a head coach and 2 assistant cheerleading coaches. But I noticed on the matrix there's only a head coach and an assistant.
So they get paid for, like, the fall and winter is combined into one. So for this new matrix, it would get separated out where we'd have our fall cheer program, and then we'd have our winter cheer program, which is competition cheer.
Right, but at the fall has 2 assistants on it, 2 assistant cheer coaches and a head.
Are they paid? Is it a split pay?
I don't know. That's what I was. If you're not going to waive the matrix for the fall, I'm just wondering how that would work within this
That's
matrix.
just a quantity thing, and I think the winter person was added into the fall. So I think that included the winter and fall on the budget file.
No, I'm talking about the agenda.
Oh, the agenda,
We're
sorry.
approving on the agenda a head coach and 2 assistant cheerleading coaches for the fall.
Yeah, for this one, we would only have 1 head, 1 assistant.
Right, that's why I just want to make sure that whatever we're approving next week we're approving with this matrix in mind if we are looking to move into this matrix for the fall.
Yeah.
And then could we have a copy of the coaches' salaries for this year, and then what would it look like with next year's numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't we look at getting some of your questions answered, coming back in June's caucus to see if there's any final questions and everybody feels comfortable. And if that's the case, then we'll add it to the June's agenda to see if we can go live for the 25-26 school year. If there's questions at the June caucus, it'll be pulled for the June agenda. And that gives us an opportunity either July or August, or to wait until the 26-27 school year.
I just have one question. So I think, Leanne, kind of piggybacking off what you said, it seems like in looking at the matrix, the junior high, based on how you figured out the numbers, and them only having a 50-25 spread, you are going to run into that by year 10. If somebody moved from an assistant position to a head coach position, they're gonna drop in salary. So are looking at that adjustment and what that would look like, whether it's a different spread or how you're gonna adjust that and what that impact would be on the budget.
Yeah, we could definitely, we'll take a look at that for sure. For sure, because you're right, you want to avoid those kinds of things.
All right, thank you very much. Any further questions? I was just taking some notes down as well so we can revisit. I'm sure everybody was doing the same, so we can make sure all questions are answered. This is an important step, and we want to make sure that that information comes. And Mr. Markowitz will send me those numbers, and I'll disseminate that to the full board, so you have what the current pay will look like by position, and then what the future will look like, so you can cross-comparison those as well. Yes, in terms of mid-pen discussion, at this point, if it's the will of just a kind of a straw poll right now, if you're comfortable with, yes, maybe we could do the old thumbs up, thumbs down, just looking across the board, just to visit that conversation. What we could certainly do is look to see if a representative would be available at June's caucus, if that's not too early, just to have a conversation of what it would look like and allow that opportunity to have a discussion. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of pros and cons. We have to look at how that will impact every interscholastic sport offering that we have. Not just 1, 2, 3, or 4. What does that look like across the board? And what does that look like in multiple years? And then what does it look like in terms of travel distance? And we won't really know. There's a lot of things that are still movable pieces because it's in 26, I believe, that Mid-Penn redesigns or realigns. There's some movable pieces, certainly that was on Penn Live or the Patriot News today, with some schools moving in and out, and that happens right around this time as well, and it's not uncommon. And if you're locked in, it's not uncommon to move out again too. You're not bound. You're typically bound for what, a 2-year commitment. But again, those questions are all good questions that I'd like to hear directly from the executive director or that person's representative.
So do you want thumbs up, thumbs down now?
Please, if I could.
The only thing I will add is I remember when we switched to Tri-Valley, as does probably Mr. Lehman, and through whatever avenue, social media or whatever, I want to make sure that our community members know that we're having these conversations because it will be a concern for the community.
Certainly, and that's why this full discussion is here at a public meeting. That's why we're looking at the will of being able to publicly broadcast the fact that there's no hidden conversations, that it's out in the open, that we want to really make sure that it's a research-driven entity and a research-driven discussion when there's no firmness in anything at this point, but really getting your will to be able to study it. We've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work that goes into making a decision that's this impactful, and there's a lot of questions to be asked. And I think us gathering and collecting as many questions as we can and getting those questions in front of the director if they know the answers. But if not, then it's our job to begin that process and research of looking into it. And I can see us coming back with study 1, study 2, and ongoing.
You definitely have a thumbs up from me since I voted against it in the first place.
And we would have the Mid-Penn president, and then it would probably be the AD from Mechanicsburg, who's pretty high up in Mid-Penn. Those two would probably come and make a presentation if that's something we'd want to do.
How do you turn this thing on?
Typically, we have public comment at the end, but if it's the will to allow for that to occur, we will change batting order.
Just need to state your name and your township.
Joe Krismer, Dolphin, the head football coach. I just want to make a quick comment. The Mid-Penn thing, as I'm dealing with recruiting right now for the football side, even though we are a part of the Mid-Penn, Susquenita is hardly noticed from a recruiting side. We're highly missed, and I think playing the competition at the Mid-Penn side from all scholastic sports is not only just going to escalate the competition for us, but it's going to set a new standard for the athletes here. They're going to see a lot of the bigger schools, and let's be honest, within the next couple of years, we're going to be a 4A school for football. We're going up to District 2 to play different competition. We're hosting a 7-on-7 here, playing against 6A schools, 5A schools, purposely for our kids to understand the level of competition that's out there that we don't necessarily see playing a lot of the local teams. And it's nothing against the local teams. They're great organizations. But in order to take all the programs to the next level, I think the big thing is to go play tougher competition. And that's only going to do field hockey better, track and field, softball, all that's going to do everything better for us as a whole district. So thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Mrs. Singley can speak to this. I believe there are sports reporters out there, Penn Live maybe, that just refuse to cover us at all because we're not part of Mid-Penn.
It's essentially a mandate by their news organizations to only cover schools that are in the Mid-Penn Conference. So to Coach's point, I think part of the reason why recruiting does get hit hard for us is because there's no publicity, because we don't have any coverage through the newspaper or any of the outlets, the digital outlets out there that, you know, coaches, college coaches can read or be part of. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your work. Mr. Browse, thank you for assisting Mr. Markowitz, to our coaches, and to the other schools who are willing to give up their coaches matrix too and participate. That collegial discussion is extremely important as we look to get feedback and see what works for our school district and our programs. Going right along with batting out of order, we're going to transition now into discussing, it's kind of that spirit of change. And we're going to talk a little bit about Synergy, which is the potential for a new student information system. So we'll load that up, and you have some really neat handouts that take a look at the power of Synergy, as well as a really cool pen and a multi-purpose. You can never have enough screwdrivers, so it was provided by the CSIU as well. In the event, if you're like me, everything is assembly required, so you need it when the time comes. So let's talk a little bit. There's a lot of reasons, certainly, when we look at our student information system. Our student information system is extremely valuable. It's valuable to our parents. It's valuable to us as educators. It requires a tremendous amount of information that gets put into our student information system. It captures our Pennsylvania information management system. It tracks a student over time. It has assessments, our grades, attendance, all the information. As we get into high school, it becomes transcripts. It becomes those official notifications that we can look at. It has also our discipline and our remedies to those discipline, what outcomes have had, and it tracks an infraction to that outcome and that disciplinary sanction. So it looks across the board when we think about the power of a student information system. So as we transition, Mrs. Matash and I are going to look and tag team this presentation together. She's done an incredible job. So first of all, when we look at our current student information system. It came to light certainly during a security concern in December of 2024. We want to make sure and need to make sure that any platform we use is secure. It has multi-factor authentication. Certainly it's changing up with the times. That it continues to look at vulnerabilities and does any inside vulnerability testing. That's really important to us. And as we begin to look at other options, certainly it started out as what is out there. Well, we were quick to note that our student information system currently hasn't really had a facelift in several years. It became stagnant. It's a large company. They have a lot of different features, but a lot of those features, in our opinion, when we began to research, are add-on additional features that cost, and oftentimes can become clunky. Sometimes the support becomes difficult and requires a lot of reading and not a lot of support. So that is certainly one of them. We look at that intuitive and that feedback, being able to look at one platform that can do multiple options. That's really important to us as well. So when we click on a student or we click on an icon, that icon we can work through without having to shift into multiple tabs. So I'm going to transition, allow Mrs. Matash to talk more better than I'm sure I can about all of these features that we look at through this student information solution called Synergy.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. Yes, and we did look at multiple student information systems. Synergy was the one that our team felt was what we needed. And some of the benefits of Synergy is that all-in-one grading system. So there's the grading schedule, attendance, and parent communication. Right now, if we have to contact parents with riding specific buses, we have to pull information from PowerSchool, put it into School Messenger. We can do it right from Synergy. So communicating with parents within Synergy. I'm not saying we don't need School Messenger because we still need it to contact community members, but it is easier to find who we need to contact within Synergy. There is an improved user experience. Our current SIS is very outdated for teachers, parents, administrators. The improved user experience is much more intuitive for the people using it. Better data management and reporting. Like Dr. Fox said, with our current SIS, there are multiple parts of the application that we would have to purchase in order to see some of these better data management and reporting. Within Synergy, it's all inclusive. It's included in that base model. One thing I heard from multiple schools, I did reach out to multiple schools who are using Synergy, and many of them said that it's great for state reporting. So our PIM state reporting, it really makes it easier. It gives you warnings if there's data that's incorrect, where our current one does none of that, and it is pretty difficult to go through those errors. Again, like we said, the stronger parent and student portal, that ease of access for our parents and students. And it's mobile friendly. Right now, there is a mobile app for our current SIS for parents and students, but not for administrators. So if we want to use our phone or our iPad, we have to go to the site, and it's very difficult to navigate and find information because it's not in that mobile friendly form. So looking at just this implementation, I have some key phases that we're looking at for the implementation. Right now is that planning and communication, just establishing in the team, informing stakeholders. This is our presentation to the school board. I plan on sending an email to the staff later tonight, letting them know about it. Again, we were working with a group of teachers and administrators, so they're aware of it, but sending it out to the larger, the entire staff. We are going to have that planning communication starting now through September 2025. Then in October of 2025, we would work with CSIU to start that data transition and system setup. So they would give us a team dedicated to us, work with us, in-person meetings. We would probably be doing Zooms, but it will take quite a few months for that data transition. So we'll start October 2025. During that time, we'll also train staff, so administrators, CSIU will actually come do the training. It's not the train-the-trainer model. They will be the ones doing the training for us. And then our plan would obviously then to go live in July of 2026, and then throughout that half of year also continue to train, you know, making sure that everyone's comfortable. Our plan would be to train parents and students as well, so we would have at back to school nights have some parent training on the new app, setting up the new app for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of movable parts. This is a big undertaking, and you know, this is kind of the overview. Within that overview, there will be several key points and milestones that we'll have to make in order to continue that transition. It's a goal, but having a full year to be able to roll over and move that data, learn, train. We will still operate our master schedules in Power School this year. We will still do everything in Power School, and that conversion behind the scenes will occur. It's important to note, as Mrs. Montage said, we'll have the support of the Central Intermediate Unit, the CSIU. Currently, we use our CSIU for our financial software. They've been a really good partner. They have a quick turnaround time in terms of support, and they're also the key point of contact as the intermediate unit for the Pennsylvania Information Management System, or PIMS. So they are the PIMS help desk, and that's also very nice because as those updates occur, they will advocate for the software that they endorse and support. We'll also have those updates as well. So we feel that that will be a nice addition for us. Will there be pain points? Absolutely. There is anytime you implement something. Will there be some additional features? Yes. It's like buying a new car. It's great, but you have to get used to that, using that a little bit as well, and some of the features that are there as we continue to learn all of those features associated with this new model.
Yep, and then some of this engagement plan, we did talk about that, just overseeing that transition to ensure a smooth rollout, working with CSIU for that data migration and system configuration, and provide ongoing support. Like Dr. Fox said, we know that what their support is like at CSIU because of financial. I know if I send an email or call, they are super, they get back to us right away and hop on calls, Zooms at that day to help us with it. So I know we will see that same kind of support with this synergy. We will also, like I said, train teachers on the new gradebook attendance and student data tools, and they did also agree to come to Lifted and do a couple of sessions for our teachers just as a little preview this summer, which I think will be helpful for our teachers and administrators to see it in action a whole year ahead of time. We will look at just adopting new workflows for grading and communication, right? Making sure that as we're making these changes, that there are things that we have kind of talked about throughout the years. Oh, we wish Power School could do this, or we should change this. We will make those changes now as we're moving to a new SIS. And just providing feedback on any kind of system improvements. We need to, through the process, right, making sure we're managing student records, transcripts, and scheduling. How will we keep these? How long? What's our data retention policy? Looking at those types of things. We're going to make sure that we're receiving early training. Like I said, we'll have the training at Lifted, and then we'll have groups of teachers helping with the transition, and admin and administrative assistants, so they will receive that early training. And again, assisting parents and students with access to the system. We also do want to make sure that we're providing that communication. So right now, our goal is to provide it to the students. We will plan on then providing that communication to parents and other stakeholders as well. So just our next steps, looking at finalizing the implementation plan, continue our communication, and then, like I said, beginning that data transition with CSIU October 2025, start training our staff, not just little bits of training, but actual training in spring of 2026 with a full implementation for July 1, 2026. Do you have any questions?
Kelly Noss, Penn Township. I do have a question. In terms of with particularly the elementary school, not all grades do the percentage. They also do the 1 to 4 scale. Does this app allow for that to be implemented in terms of grading?
Yeah, it actually will
Yes.
be a lot better. So yes, so she's talking about standards-based report cards at the elementary school. They have a better system. Another thing, it will be an actual electronic report card, not just kind of that pseudo-electronic, especially for the standards-based reporting.
Yes, we feel that interface and that ability to be able to show and demonstrate what the students know and understand and do, that this reporting tool will be much greater and enhanced than what we currently have.
I'd just like to say it's a lot of work. It gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
Us too.
But I think your time frame is phenomenal. I think what you have is perfect.
Certainly like to commend Mrs. Matash because when we were mentioning that, certainly that anxiety rides to both of us. And it is going to be a process. There's going to be hiccups along the way, but it's going to be a consistent teamwork. Mr. Funk?
Yeah, I'll add in on this. It will be a process in changing from Power School, which we've been using, well,
20
probably
plus
20
years,
some
yes.
years. I remember when we rolled it out. The presentation, of course, you have to get used to using it, but I guess the way it looks online and from a building perspective, what you can do from a single page, once we get used to it, it's going far surpass what we can do with Power School, is what we're hoping. So but it seemed very positive, so we're looking forward to the change.
I just want to say, I think on behalf of the board, we have an admin team that is not just always taking the easy way, but is always looking at ways we can do things better, ways we can do things differently, whether it's with staff, whether it's with resources. And it's refreshing and appreciated, even though it's going to make so much more work for you guys. It's incredible. But ultimately, it's going to be best for our kids, for our community, for our staff. So I'm just thrilled with our admin team and people that have a vision and aren't afraid to challenge the standard, what we've always been doing for something better.
Thank you very much. Thank you to, again, to the entire team. And we know this will be a process. And to our teachers who may be listening, it's okay. We're going to provide that support. It's going to be a year because there's a lot of learning that goes along with it. But as Mr. Funk really said it well, I think the features there and the usability, once you see it, that workflow, the goal is to be able to save time in the long run. And I believe this will. And it has a lot of nice features that really will save and for the duration. So thank you. Let's transition and have a little fun now with Guaranteed Energy Savings Project. The next steps concerning looking at the possibility of requests for proposals. So I'll go through this relatively quickly. As you know, we are partnering with Pannoni Engineering. And our point of contact, JP Groppensberger from Pannoni Engineering. And congratulations to JT, who received I believe, a new promotion within his company. And yet he's still helping us out here in his home district, Susquenita School District. So we're excited to continue to partner. The next step in that process, so we had a large-scale MEP kind of facilities review, and it identified several areas. In those areas, we believe we may be able to, so there's a couple things. Item A, you've already approved, and we're beginning that process of scheduling, and that is, it's at the manufacturer's level right now, and once we get that manufacturer's date of when we can take possession of those, and we'll begin that construction timeline for our bleachers at the replacement at the middle school and high school, with that goal certainly being in place for the start of the school year. Plus or minus some wiggle room there for sure. The second is we are procuring the finalization of quotes to continue and getting that weatherproofing for the remaining sections of roof that are out of warranty, and then that will put our entire district under warranty for the roof projects and the roof treatments. There's several sections here at the high school and a section at the middle school and some drain repairs. Once I get that number and have a chance where Mr. Howell and I and Mr. Baus can review that together, we'll present that number to you for consideration. These are additional items. These additional items we believe can be grouped together, what's called the Guaranteed Energy Savings Act. So a GISA project, or if I'm saying that correctly, is an energy savings performance contract that was established in Pennsylvania in 1988 by state statute. It provides a Commonwealth agency such as us, as a school district, with a way to achieve large-scale capital improvements and energy savings by contracting with a qualified energy service company. So there's limited companies that can perform this that have to be approved, and they're called ESCOs, or energy savings companies, are able to pay. So the idea is to pay for those facilities by tomorrow's energy savings. So for us, it would be capital outlay first, and then they would be studying what that energy savings would be, and that energy savings would be recouped in the budget moving forward each additional year. So really, for me, it's an opportunity, or for us, it's certainly an opportunity for one single point of contact. So if it goes out for RFP, we like the RFPs, that company becomes our single point of contact. So if they have subcontractors or they have other individuals, that company is that main point of contact, meaning there's not going to be change orders. There will be no change orders to these types of projects, which is imperative, because sometimes your smallest projects can have the most change orders, in my opinion. It also allows for the scope of work. So the more that you put in, sometimes the more you have economies of scale potentially to save. Energy savings is guaranteed, and it has to be engineered and measured, and allows us to use our capital to obtain energy savings throughout this project. So some areas we're looking to consider including in an RFP or request for proposals would be HVAC replacement or recommission. So I said that word as well, because a company could come in and say, hey, this looks good, but you need to replace A, B, C, and D, and you still have 20 plus years if you do that. So that has an opportunity for either replacement or recommissioning. And that's at the Susquenita Middle School. There has to be at least a 90% efficiency rate associated with that we'll specify. That allows it to make sure it's maximized and being used properly. Certainly, we'd like to put in high school windows and doors, flooring and fixture replacement at the middle school and high school bathrooms. Middle school and elementary school hallway flooring replacement and ceiling tile replacement at the middle school. So if you're going to do HVAC work and you're going to be up there anyway, replace the tiles, which there is also an energy savings associated with the correct tile that's being placed in there as well. High school outside wall repair, or the dry vent or EFIS system, that, as we talked about, will need to be recoated, repainted, cut and sealed at the bottom 5 to 8 inches from the ground level to prevent additional water protrusion. Middle school hallway and classroom lighting replacements, so they're in there as well. So let's talk about, these are just some items to guaranteed energy savings. This is not necessarily the other projects that we're working with RLPS on through Pannoni, which is looking at what could we possibly do at the auditorium and some of those pinch points for the auditorium and the redesigning of some of those spaces. I will be honest with you, I don't know what these numbers will come back at. Looking at, and you can certainly do the same, as we looked at that large MEP report that we received, and that report came back from some just construction, what I would call computer program that they used, and put some whole numbers in there for us to look at. There's a lot of variables when it comes to construction. Timing certainly is a variable. Costs are certainly a variable. What's happening in terms of materials and being able to have materials. All of those are variables beyond our control. So what we would like to do is consider gaining your approval at the board meeting to go out for RFP. So if you're okay with it, we would gain approval at the May's board meeting for us to go out for RFP for these items, which is request for proposal. Yes, there's a cost associated with that because there's some advertising that has to go on as a public notice within local papers and websites. We would look at posting that in and around May 20th. We would have a site visit for contractors on June 12th. where any interested contractor could come see it rather than just estimate it. They would come on site, we would walk them through, we would take them to look at our HVAC, they could see the windows, they could touch the dry vent system or FS, they could see the floors, they could see the restrooms, those types of things, and it would be a one day. And certainly, JT will be here to support me on that as well. Then we would look at RFP proposals that would be due on July 14th. So that gives a pretty good runaway for them to really do their due diligence if they want to put a bid in for this. It's a very large project and a very large and detailed review. The review then, based upon this, because it's not necessarily your lowest bid, which is a consideration, it's who's the most qualified and has sometimes the best references. So what happens is we'll go through a full rubric, and it will be a panel of reviewers. There'll be an odd number who could break any tie, and we'll go through that full panel of rubric review. Then we would look for the possibility of board consideration at August 12th, at which time we will note in the RFP that if you do not like any of these proposals or do not like anything at the time, you could certainly say thank you, but no thank you.
Quick question. When you put the RFP out, does it include all the items you discussed? Or I think some of those items, I don't know that we approved all of those items. Will they still be up for discussion once the RFP is put out, or?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot. So we have to be able to show when you do, or if we do, and go out for this guaranteed energy savings, there has to be systems in place that you're looking at least an 80% recovery used for energy savings. So some of these items, you could tell me if any of these items you do not want, and we can go back to that slide, which is slide number, yes, thank you very much. And you can take a look and see. Again, I think if you get the scope of work too small or the scope of work too large, it's not attractive to the right contractor.
I have a question, like how does flooring replacement fit into energy savings?
And again, these are items we can add, and it may not. So it may be one of those that fit within that 20% or lesser than that, if I'm saying that accurately, and it could be a value add. So it doesn't have that return on the energy.
That was similar to the kind of, like bathroom fixture replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, frankly, if we're going to do that, I would like there to be dividers between the urinals in the men's rooms.
Sure.
And they call them hiney hiders on the doors to be large enough they actually hide a hiney.
Sure,
Like,
when we look at the town hall,
so
that was part of our student feedback. and we
will
s-
that ever, I guess my question is, will those be conversations we're going to have? Or once the RFP's out there, that's no longer open for conversation?
No, I think we would help to generate what some of those visions would be for in there. They would help to design it. We would have to approve those designs as to what they would be. When we look at fixtures, we're talking about sinks, certainly, right? Not having maybe 3 sinks against the wall. There'd be one larger sink that has 2 faucets that come out. Replacing possibly hand towels and the replacement of hand towels with hand dryers. Looking at, yes, fixtures that conserve water, fixtures that aren't as old, looking at flooring that's not corroded, and just some of those touch-up elements of that point. And yes, having at the high school install doors, install areas that are larger, and have that needed privacy that certainly our students deserve. So those types of things will be looked at. And they'll come up with design projects associated with those.
Do you have a ballpark idea of what the RFP is going to cost?
No, I can certainly pull those together from that MEP, but no, I do not at this time.
So I guess my question then for the board is, if I understood him correctly, he would like us to vote to decide to put a request for proposal out. He would like us to vote on that next week. Is there anyone opposed to having that on the agenda to vote for an RFP for these projects?
I don't oppose to it. I think my question would be, when you put the RFP out, I know you said we could reject the proposals. Is there a way to write the RFP, or will we be able to reject part of it? So like if it came in really high and we said, we like this proposal, but we don't want to do the flooring, would that be language you would have to put in the RFP for us to be able to do, or do you think that would undermine the getting proposals back?
So I certainly can look into that. I'm not by any way, shape, and form an expert when it comes to this. I will, and again, I was looking for your direction. It has not gone to, the draft design has not gone to our solicitor for review, and that's where it needs to go. And I certainly can ask that question if, in fact, if numbers come back, are we able to subrogate and select or remove items that we do not believe? And that's something we may be able to add in there, and we can check on that question, which is a really good question. And there's a good chance that if we get proposals back, or a proposal or two proposals, and we look at it and they're too high, that honestly, we may be out some money for advertising, and we may have to wait. And it may be advisable for us to do so. So we'll have to see really what that is. And timing is a lot of things when it comes to construction. Certain things can be done at certain times. All of that will be worked out. But this is just one of those steps to see what comes back at this point.
That's why I asked about the cost to put out the RFP, because we have a certain amount of money. And so if the RFPs come back and they're all way over that amount, we may have to say no completely or considerably cut certain things to get it within. But if we have to cut certain things to get it within the financial parameters, then do we have to go back out to RFP again because we cut too much? And if we do, or we have, I mean, is it $25,000 for an RFP? Is it, you know what I mean? I just, that's the only part about it that concerns me, is it feels like this project is vague enough that we may end up rejecting it before we ever get started.
Certainly, the other thing you can do as a board, if you would like, is we could bid out each one of these items separately. Each one of these things could be done separately. And that would not be a guaranteed energy savings plan anymore. We could go out and get quotes, procure quotes. And again, we'd be looking at a cost associated with bidding each one of these items separate. So there'd be a bidding cost for each item separately, which you could do certainly, depending on what it is.
Would it make, sorry.
That's okay.
Would it make sense to put together a guaranteed energy plan and put that out for an RFP, and then the other items which we may not be able to tie into energy savings, but are things we would like to do, put them separately? Would that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think there are some things that we could say we must include. And again, I'll check on all of the legalities associated with that. And then there's some that could be value add. So what would the add additional be for these particular items, if that's possible in this type of agreement?
So what generally is the cost of doing a request for proposals? Is it the advertising and things like that that go along with that? Not the cost of the proposals, what we think that it's going to cost us to do this, just to request proposals.
Just a request for proposals. Again, yes. Number one, cost to advertise. So the legal documents that need to go out with public notices and public documents. Again, the time that we are using in our engineering agreement, that's time. And then certainly our time, and then legal time to review that. So yeah, there is time, but the postings, each legal notice, there's cost because you pay per word in those public documents. So yeah, there are some costs associated
But are we
with that.
talking $20,000 or are we talking $5,000?
You're probably talking $5,000.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so it's not like we're talking.
Or less than.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or less than.
I mean, I understand it's money, but it's not like we're not talking $50,000 just to get, yeah, tens of
And this was
thousands
part of our
dollars, right?
agreement, certainly with Pannoni, was to help us to get an agreement together to go out and to see, once we measure, these are the areas we want to look at. We know what they are. Then what would it in real time cost us right now as the board based upon, an energy company or an ESCO company who's approved saying we can do A, B, and C, and this is what it's going to cost you?
And I don't want to prolong the conversation because it's getting late, but if they come back and say they want to make these changes to the auditorium and the dressing room or whatever, it makes sense to me that we would group an RFP for internal cosmetic type things together, which I would say some of these seem to be to me, and then the energy savings things together in a different RFP. But again, I don't know per se.
No, you make a good point. So maybe what I'm hearing is we have not seen those reports, and I know JT is going back to asking where they're at, and that takes a little bit of time. So what I'm kind of hearing is maybe we wait and see what comes back from that most latest study and see where that cost estimates come in and what their design plan looks like, and then to see if there's anything that needs to be added into this to get the maximum usage of advertising. What it does is it continues to delay the scope of projects and the scope of work. I personally don't want to continue delaying too long, but I understand that we want to make sure we get a full look at everything before we make a decision as to what goes in.
I'd like to hear from other board members as well, but I don't want to delay, the EFS stuff and some of those other things and replacing perhaps lights with, I don't want to delay if we can do a cost energy saving thing, but I don't necessarily want to move forward with other things that would not fall into that category. But I don't know what other people are
There's
thinking.
potential that this could take all of our capital.
Yeah.
100%.
Or more than.
Correct. I'm not going to not tell you that because I don't know the true number, but I know HVAC is continuing to rise in costs. And it's not going down anytime soon.
Thoughts, everybody, anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, just looking at the list, it looks like everything is tied to energy. I think the only thing that could maybe not would be flooring. But I think even your fixtures and stuff in the bathroom,
Yes.
based on water and all that other stuff, I could see that. I just would like, it would be, just as I said before, it'd be kind of nice to know if we did get it back, if there was something that was just really pushing it out of our reach or something that we decide to not do because we want to carve out money for some of the more cosmetic things in a completely different bucket of money. Will we be able to do that? And I think that would be super helpful, that if we would have that option in the RFP.
So looking to see if there's a possibility of not just rejecting outright, which is always a possibility, we want to continue to have that, but the possibility of being able to reject the line items.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check on that.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if the board
Yeah.
feels that way, but
I'll explore that.
Be clear, this will be on the agenda next week with some additional explanation as part of a conversation.
Yeah, certainly let me get some answers before we add it to the official agenda 24 hours beforehand. See if I can get those answers to you if we are having the ability to line item removal and or continue to have that ability to reject outright. If those are the case, I would agree, I would feel more comfortable putting it on there and seeing certainly what the results come out at.
And I don't think we can add to the agenda, but we could certainly delete from the agenda.
That
So
is
if there's
correct.
a question, I would rather it be on there, and then we take it off if needs be.
Yep, or table the item, absolutely. All right, thank you very much. Looking at agenda, just a couple of things here on your, we have our co-curricular and extracurricular code of conduct. It is not printed in color for a reason, because there are no proposed changes to that. So please go ahead. You may take that item with you, and if there's any questions on that, we would be more than happy to take a look at those questions in the future. And looking at the code of conduct, that does, in fact, is printed in color because there is one slight change on page 8. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Funk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You may recognize both these documents from about this time or beginning of the school year. We brought them to you. We spent time over the summer having a standard document that goes over code of conduct for students, and you gave us feedback and we adjusted it and have the documents that are in front of you. We spent time revising or reviewing it, how they've been successful or issues that have risen this year with these documents, and very few changes were made, I think, because of the time put in when they were initially created. The main change in the student code of conduct was basically coming from the high school and dealing with cell phones. We had a multi-pronged step to dealing with students having cell phones, where you like redirect, give them a warning, and so pretty much they'd be having cell phones multiple times because we thought of a way to lead in to help them redirect. Well, now that we've been using those a year, we need to take out a few steps. Yes, still give them the nod or redirect, but then after that, you're contacting home, getting lunch attention, because we're at high school. After the initial one, then we can start contacting home and giving consequences that escalate as the number of offenses. So that's the big change on page 8 and 9, just taking out a few prompting steps and going more to the action to, correct the behavior.
Have you seen rises of offenses that is leading to this needing to be done? I particularly am interested in the unauthorized video and audio recording thing, because
we usually have 1 or 2 of those that brought to our attention each year, and that goes to an automatic suspension, depending on where and the information behind the video recording. It could go from in school to out of school and police involvement, depending on what is being filmed. We did have, I think it was the beginning of this year, unauthorized filming that did result in some significant consequences from that. It's not prevalent as opposed to just being on their phone playing a game, but we do see a few occurrences.
but how about just regular usage? I guess my question is, do the teachers feel like they have to be policing this a lot?
I would say, one, it's part of classroom management, so that is part of the responsibility to be redirecting. And if we start it from day one, what the expectations are for the class, then maintain it through the year, it becomes just part of the routine. But you see different variances of it depending on the class you go to. I don't get tons of write-ups for this. Usually after one redirect, it's corrected, but we do get some. And it's something I think we will explore in the future where we want to go with this, but I don't think it's rampant with issues. But it is something we need to start exploring because they can be classroom disruptions. In some classrooms, the phones are disruptions.
What about you, Mr. Black? I see you nodding.
We did something at the middle school this year where for 8th grade, we had some issues with a few kids. We did like a 4-strike type approach. So the first 2 were warnings, and the second one was a lunch detention. We took the phone to the office till the end of the day, and then the 4th one, which we haven't had anybody get there yet since we'd implemented, the parent would have to come pick it up because I think, if you keep telling the same kid 8 times, it's not going to change once you get the phone back. But if you get the parent involved, I feel like that's a step. We always have cell phones, but we recommend them keep them in the locker. But like I told the teachers, we're not going to strip search kids. If they have them, as long as they're not visibly using them, that's not the issue. But like we have some kids, if you see them with earbuds in, then they're probably using their cell phone. It becomes a distraction. Like Mr. Funk says, then they end up in the bathroom, and then stuff happens that.
And the reason I bring that up is because I briefly broached this subject when we had the student town hall here. And I spoke only for myself, not by any discussion we've had amongst the board. But I've been seeing a lot of the use of these Yonder pouches in schools, and teachers are loving them, and students actually learn to love them. And for those that are not familiar with them, they are a pouch that a student gets, they keep their phone with them, but it is locked during the day through like a sort of cipher lock system. And then they unlock it when they leave, and they don't have use of their phone during the day. And all of the discussions about parents want to be able to get a hold of their kids, that has been put to rest in a lot of these school districts. They're not cheap. I know I talked to Dr. Fox about it. I do know that there had been some grant money that, that the state offered in light of that, because they wanted to put a cell phone ban in Pennsylvania, which essentially they kind of got to, but not fully yet in the classroom. But there's a big push for it. And this is just kind of highlighting it for me, that you've got issues. When you said 4 strikes, you sit there and you go, how many times do you have to keep striking? And then the teacher has to keep track of those strikes. And then do they just kind of throw their hands up in the air and go, I'm done. I'm done fighting the battle. Just let them have the phone. And so, I don't know. Maybe that's a discussion for us to have as a board at some point.
Yeah, I think
futuristically look at
I think
that.
it would be a good discussion for us to have, and certainly something we could talk about, perhaps as a future goal for myself and our administrative team to research what that would look like. What would that look like cost-wise to do a Yonder pouch? What would that look like in terms of us studying districts that have implemented it? What do they experience? What do they see? What do they feel? Talking with kids, getting a group of teachers, students, parent feedback. What does that look like across the board? There's pros and cons to any decision, but again, if that's certainly something we can talk about, if we would like that to be a goal to research, because it would take some time to be able to research that and implement that and look at that. And if that's a desire, we certainly can talk about that further.
I guess my counter to this is, are we also going to use it for teachers? Because teachers have their cell phones in the classroom, and are we also going to Yonder pouch teachers? Because the reality is our students are imitating what is being modeled for them, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's at home. I mean, the reality is that they're doing what is being modeled for them wherever that may be. And so the idea comes down to, we can either force things on them and they're going to feel like they're being controlled, or we can teach them how to use it appropriately and when is the appropriate time to use it and not use it.
Well, and I agree with Mr. Funk, because behaviorally, I think it needs to start with the teachers very early in the school year. What are your expectations? If the cell phone is not to be out, they get a warning. And I think based on the age groups, that's going to make a difference in terms of maybe how many warnings they give. So, I mean, maybe more enforcement in terms of whatever the teacher, and it sounds like that's what you're trying to do with these changes. So, I mean, I do think it starts there, and it starts very early in the school year from what I'm hearing. The teachers that set this standard, it's not acceptable, you need to put it away, are probably going to have the most success. Not all the time, depending on the different challenges of the children, but I agree with that. From a behavioral perspective, I think it's smart to do that.
So I think it's certainly something we can have further discussions on, but it will take a lengthy amount of time to be able to have those. So if ever, just for the sake of time, and it is important discussion, and one certainly right now that we could do a lot of things. All I know is one thing: I will be the first to volunteer to put mine in a way. I'm okay with that. I think my principals would probably and staff would team. But no, I think there's some things we could do. Appreciate those addendums to the current student code of conduct. So we'll look for your approval on those for the meeting coming up Tuesday. So it is something we can revisit internally as conversation to see if there's any further board goals we would like to take as a research study to see if it's something we want to spend that research capital on. But I think at this time, if it's okay, if it pleases you, let's transition into budget update, which is, I believe, is the last budget update for the preliminary budget. All right, looking at our budget overview number 6, and that's just from caucus meetings. We've had a series, so anybody who's listening to this at this time, we had a series of special budget meetings that occurred, and we went through every item that was inside of the general fund budget. We went through that by object and code, and broke those down by special meeting, by each building and subcodes and areas. And a lot of great questions asked by you as the board as we look to continue to land that plane. And really the goal for this evening is I'm looking for some direction if you agree to a couple of different models or a model, because it does take a lot of time to be able to put together a preliminary budget and have it available. So we're looking for kind of that direction this evening. It is important to note that at a preliminary budget, you can reduce taxes from the preliminary to the final, but from the preliminary, you cannot increase any millage. You can only reduce. So moving right along, I do want to highlight on the next slide a little bit here, just some budget considerations. And again, I continue to say this, but it has a lot of different media attention again, and it does this time of year. When we look at our overall deficit that we're projecting, regardless of what model that we choose, we are using fund balance on. That is your savings that you earned over time. And if we had any type of cyber charter reform payment, and we're not saying cyber charter schools should be dissolved completely. What needs to happen is the funding and how they're funded needs to be changed and turned upside down. The cost to educate a child at a cyber charter school is greater and it's less than, than what it costs to educate at a brick and mortar. You're not having buses, you're not having cafeteria, and you're not having athletics. So there are no ABCs associated with that. And there should not be any facility cost associated with it either. I will not spend countless hours going over this because, again, my frustrations will come out not about cyber charter schools, but about how they're funded and about what they use with taxpaying money. Special education, we continue. IDEA and Individuals with Disabilities Education Act was never funded fully as it was anticipated by the federal government. Our utilities and salary and benefits and PSERS continues to be a cost driver. Top budget pressures. This is across all 500 school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as produced as a chart by the Pennsylvania School Boards Association as the state of the school districts report that they have, and charter school tuition payments are a huge pinch point at 73%. And again, if we had slimless, it's some type of flatline tuition rate, these discussions we are having this evening would be a little easier.
Can I just ask a question, and I think maybe just a little bit of clarification for the public? Our cyber tuition rate for Susquenita is not the same as, for say, a school like CCA, is not the same as a student that goes to Newport. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I think part of the other issue with cyber charter is we are not paying cyber charter tuition based on what it costs to educate the child at CCA. It's based on a funding formula based on what it costs to educate a child at Susquenita. So in other words, if I send a child to college, to Penn State, I'm going to pay the same tuition, whether I'm from Harrisburg or Johnstown. But if you send a child to CCA, you pay something different if you're coming from Susquenita than if you come from Newport or if you're coming from Central Dauphin. And that's all based on essentially the amount of money it costs to educate a student here based on our budget, which is upside down. To your point, another support for having it be a flat line rate. It should cost the same to educate a child at CCA, regardless of what high school you come from, or school district you come from.
And if I could just highlight that point, and I'm not going to name the schools, but I was talking to another superintendent this week or last week who was telling me about two schools which are 10 miles apart. And the difference in costs for one special education between the school districts was $30,000. So the one school was paying $30,000 per student. The other school was paying $60,000 per student to send their students to the same cyber school, just because of this funding formula. And the school districts are only 10 miles apart.
That's a really great example you use with tuition. Absolutely. College tuition. And being
Right, so
from-
there was legislation to make a flat tuition rate. And for those of the public, the way that that happens is to press your representatives and your senators to look at this tuition rate and make it pass a bill that will make it a flat tuition rate. Otherwise, it will continue to burden our district and every district, and right now, it is taking 10% of our overall budget is going to cyber charter costs. $40 million budget, almost $4 million is going to cyber charter costs. That is your tax dollars.
Of which 200 million sits in their reserve funds of 2 separate cyber charter schools.
Correct. I will, and if somebody in the community doesn't believe the statements, I would suggest they look at the Honorable Tim DeFore's Auditor General's report, which he himself, as the Auditor General, has called on the need for cyber charter payment reform. All right, moving ahead. We have already discussed our preliminary timeline. We can move through that one relatively quickly. We've talked about new budget items already, several of which we've discussed at various presentations and at various moments throughout time. So we will continue. Overall, what we are looking at right now is a current budget for 25-26 to be $39,675,656. The operating budget is a 2.9% increase from last year, and the CPI is 4.1, so we're under the CPI, or what we would call the Consumer Price Index. Overview of our projected revenue, and again, I've been talking to you, and this evening I'm going to shape up a little bit in some of the wording I used. I've been talking to you in terms of Act 1 index, right? An Act 1 index would be relatively easy for us if we were one singular county, but we are two. So therefore, some of the examples we're going to propose tonight are, it's not a true 5.5% across the board for both of our counties. What we are going to show and talk about here in a couple of minutes, some options, it doesn't play nicely because of that teeter-totter effect of the multi-counties. We're in Dauphin County and we're in Perry County. The majority of revenue and assessed values are in Perry. There's a small amount in Dauphin. Oftentimes, Dauphin will trigger first and cause an imbalance when it comes to the State Tax Equalization Bureau or what our taxing ability is. Every year you will see, as this graphic will demonstrate, oftentimes, even if we as a board do not increase or make a motion or pass to increase taxes, you will see oftentimes your millage rates slide up and down just because of the rebalancing that occurs each year. So I've been talking in terms of a 5.5% tax increase. That's 5.5% if both counties were equal. It is not necessarily the case. So a 5.5% would be 5.5% tax increase for Dauphin County and a 1% tax increase for Perry County, if in fact that is an option we wanted to go to. So I think it's a good time for us to pause for a minute and maybe bring our attention to this handout here that has some options. So option one would be if we utilized the 5.5% tax increase with a projected deficit of $2,034,000. And we say projected deficit, we as a school district cannot operate on a deficit model. That deficit would be utilizing fund balance to offset that cost. Option number three, or option number two, excuse me, would be a 0%.
Let me get.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm going to need help for this one.
So option number two is actually a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily look at the index. What that is saying is if we wanted to have the same revenue from taxes next year that we had this year. So this is a 0%, I guess, revenue change, not to be confused with a 0% tax increase change. So if we wanted to hold our revenue the same, basically saying we get the same revenue from taxes next year as what we got this year from a dollar perspective, we would require a 1.9% decrease from Perry and a 2.4% increase from Dauphin. So if you want to compare that percentage to the Act 1 index, instead of a 5.5%, that is what we would call a 2.4% Act 1 increase to get the same revenue next year that we got this year. Option number three kind of goes back to the Act 1 index. We threw this one in here because since Perry County is like 95% of our income, if we wanted to say, hey, we want to hold Perry County at 0, that would require Dauphin being at 4.4%. So that is what an Act 1 increase of 4.4% would be, and then that would hold all the Perry County townships at, kind of 0 millage to what they were this year. Option number 4 is very similar to option number 2. It was just taking that 5.5% and cutting it in half to 2.75%. So you're looking at a negative 1.6 for Perry County and a positive 2.75 for Dauphin. So those are the 4 options, that are listed there. Do you want me to talk about option number 5? So option number 5 isn't really on here, but if you wanted to really say a 0% Act 1 index, it would actually be 0% for Dauphin, which would be a negative 4.2% for Perry County, and we would lose $455,000 of income compared to what we received this year. So I guess it's kind of an explanation on Act 1 percentages and what it really means, and that it's not an across-the-board percentage. It has to do with the balancing of the counties, and you don't truly see necessarily the percent revenue that you would expect to see from these various percentages.
Can you, currently, what is a mill in Dauphin and what is a mill in Perry County? No, what a mill equals. There's a dollar amount.
So,
Just the value, times the value of whatever you're.
so at Perry County, it looks like currently it's $10 for every 1,000, and in Dauphin, it's $55 for every 1,000 of tax paid in 2024. Is that?
For every $1,000 paid on your tax bill,
As
yeah.
your tax bill, correct.
So if you pay $1,000 in taxes, your Perry County increase would be $10, and your Dauphin County increase would be like $55.
But to clarify, you said if we do nothing, we're going to lose $400,000 essentially. Is that?
So if you vote for a 0% Act 1 increase, we're going to lose $450,000 of revenue. Sorry, option 5 isn't on there, but if Dauphin County stayed at 0, it would drop, it would be a -4%, whatever I said, sorry, I gotta pull the other spreadsheet up, a -4% for Perry County, and we would lose $455,000 of revenue compared to what we got this year.
So can we just say what percentage we want Perry County, what percentage we want Dauphin County? We're not able to do that?
No, they move in tandem based on the equation, so you can't say, oh, I want, Perry County at whatever, 2%, I want Dauphin County at 2%. It's lumped together, yeah.
One will trigger over the index before the other, and typically it's Dauphin.
This year it's Dauphin, last year it was Perry, so yeah, it's all based on the assessment calculation.
There's a nice historical millage chart on slide number 10. Maybe we could go backwards. Thank you so much for driving. If we looked at 17, 18 up to 20, that J is looking at option 1 if we went with option 1. But you'll see if we were to chart that a little bit, you'll see kind of that movement, if you will, amongst counties and the movement of Dauphin as well, going, dropping, 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 going slightly up, up, again dropping and going back up and going back up. So it's really just a fascinating teeter-totter effect, if you will, that's happening between the two counties based on the equalization. Again, we are also watching. We'll get more information as we look through some of our counterparts at the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, because the reassessment certainly could have an outcome in future years as to resetting the millage rate as well.
When did Dauphin County go through a tax reassessment last? Do you know?
That's a really good question. I'll have to research that. I don't. I should know that.
So what will we be seeing on the agenda next week?
Well, that's
what he's
a great
asking
question.
us.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, you could see all of these options, but again, we have to present preliminary budgets to you to sign off for every one of these. So I think we're looking as air comfort to eliminate and strike. And is there one you like more than another that we can feel comfortable putting on the agenda? Because again, performing 4 preliminary budget drafts is a possibility, but I'd like to keep them around a little bit because it does require some work on that end.
What would have to be done, you mean before we voted, there would have to be complete drafts made?
That's correct. Because at the end of that voting, you would execute that preliminary budget by signing that off, so I can begin that posting. That has to occur for 30 days to meet the timeline of the June approval.
So our meeting is May what?
Meeting is Tuesday, May 13th.
May 13th. It would have to be posted by May 30th?
Well,
But it'd have to be posted in order to be out 30 days for us to vote in June?
correct, for our June meeting.
So if he needed more time, we could move the June meeting.
We could. There's advertising costs associated with it, but we have to, by law, approve it by June 30th.
Right.
Yep.
Just a little timing on that, though. However, whatever's voted on in June, we have to send those rates through Inficon. They got to print them, they got to send them back. We got to send them to the tax collectors to fold, to send back to us to run through our stamper, and they got to be out in the mail by July 1st. So if you wait till June 30th, there's going to be a lot of people who have some sleepless nights that night. So
what's
the sooner the better.
What is the best way for us to nail this down? We want to nail it down to 2. Last time we voted, we nailed it down to 3 last year. Do we want to nail it down to 2 this year or 3?
Well, I think it's good to hear from everybody as to is there any information you need a little bit further? We were told that the last Dauphin County assessment, it looks like it was done, countywide assessment was 2001. So they're probably due relatively soon.
Can we rule out option 5 right away?
I'm sorry?
Can we rule out option 5 right away?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If that-
sure. What is action 5 again?
Yeah, option 5 would
Yeah,
be 0%, meaning Dolphin would get 0% increase, and Perry would get a negative 4.2% decrease, and we would lose $455,000 of tax revenue.
So essentially, what I would think you would be doing is almost reversing what you did last year, in my opinion, close to it. I wouldn't recommend that, but that's just my humbled opinion.
What is option 2, though, where you have 0?
So that's where if I'm just throwing numbers out there, if we made $12 million in tax revenue last year, those are the percentages that would get us that same $12 million this year. So it's more of a revenue 0%, not an Act 1 0%. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
As much as I like option 5, I think I would be good with option 2.
I'm also at 1 and 3.
Same.
I'm fine with option 2. Actually, I'm not sure I wouldn't be fine with option 5, frankly.
I'm only at option 3.
I think I might be in option 3. Because if I'm reading that right, that would take Perry County back to the rate, the millage rate that we, all but, that we are at right now. So there would really be no tax increase in Perry County. But it would bring us some revenue in. Am I reading that right? Bring us $241,000 in.
Yeah, so there is a slight caveat that we also want to share, and that is the homestead farmstead property exclusion, according to Act 1 of 2006. Our school district has an increase in the farmstead homestead property exclusion of $172,537.61. So the good news is that's an additional amount of money provided by the state that taxpayers will see in terms of tax relief. What we will see is that the millage generation will be reduced because it has to reduce it on your assessed values. Correct?
So it's not your millage, it's a deduction from you, from your overall taxes that you pay. So that's another thing to consider, that last year, I forget the exact number, but I think it was like, there was like a $283 decrease due to the homestead for the people that have signed up for that. And then that number is going up this year. I haven't ran it totally, but we just got the number back, that there is more coming back to us for that. So there will be an additional decrease. I don't know if it was $40 or what it was, but I can get numbers at least ballpark close. Maybe it's 25. To that, the taxpayer will see a reduction as well from what they pay. So their
when
mills
you're-
will stay the same, but they will actually pay less because of the homestead credit that
So we
came
will
back to
not
them.
see an increase. We will see a decrease of $172,000 in revenue.
We will, but we'll get it back through the state. So it doesn't change what we
Oh.
get.
Oh,
It's just a
okay.
different way to look at it from a taxpayer's perspective, that they'll pay less because they're gonna be getting additional. So instead of it coming through as our local taxes, we'll get additional money from the state for that to offset it. So it's basically a zero impact to our revenue.
So, but again, that's not really affecting the millage. That's only affecting an individual taxpayer, what they pay, because their overall assessed value goes down. Yeah, I'm in Clean and Green and the Homestead Farmstead, so it's a significant difference.
Right.
What's that? I understand.
So I think I could go for, I think I could go for option 3 over 2. So what do you, am I hearing the majority wanting 1 and 3? Anyone object to Dr. Fox having on the agenda next week options 1 and 3 for us to vote on? Anyone object to that? There you go.
Thank you.
And again, that's still with the caveat that this is the preliminary budget, and if need be, or some of these numbers get a little wonky, we could always pull it out for the voting on the final. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think that does, if I'm missing an agenda item, I apologize, but I believe that does wrap up our agenda items for caucus and discussion. We will be back here in May. I want to see if there's any online postings. Any comments from the public? Thank you, Kelly, for participating and joining us. Any administrative reports, or anybody want to share anything at this time? So I do want to report, we did come out of executive session, at which time we talked about contracts and legal matters. And we are going to go back in for a relatively quick 15-minute executive session to finish discussing personnel matters. Thank you. There will be no voting at the end, or no discussions coming back forth.